Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Football-Oranje podcast. This time, it's only me and James. We'll be talking about Feyenoord, as of on the title. We'll be looking at the European playoffs, the relegation playoffs in the Eredivisie, as well as a look ahead to Ajax against Manchester United and Kasper Dolberg's future. We are on SoundCloud, YouTube, and iTunes as usual, so you can listen to us on there and download us there. Let us know what you think about this week's pod. Don't forget to ask your questions ahead of next week, and hope you enjoy. James, let's talk about Feyenoord. They won the league on Sunday. They beat Ajax 3-1. What did you make of the game? Did you watch it?
I saw the highlights. I didn't watch the game live, but the scenes after the game and the pure relief, because even when you switched on the TV after the game, it was even the main news centre went to live images from the Kuip in Rotterdam. Van Bronckhorst was in tears giving his interview with the relief of Feyenoord winning the league for the first time in 18 years. The city obviously felt a huge relief. It is fully deserved, and I was surprised at how quickly they came out of the blocks to score twice in quick succession and really want to bring that title home. Was very impressive, and I think they've done ever so well. And it was a long time coming for Feyenoord, but I must say it's extremely well deserved, and they'll now look forward to Champions League football. I can't see them disgracing themselves in the Champions League. It's too premature at the moment to make any predictions or speculation about that, but it will be a tough away day for many European teams to go to the Kuip in Rotterdam, and they mustn't underestimate Feyenoord, especially when they're playing at home in the Netherlands.
Yeah, you're right. I think you saw on Sunday the mental strength they've shown throughout the season, which was a little shaky at times when they had the likes of Pep Swallows away and they went down. But they did come back and they fought hard, and they showed that fight again. They came back from the Excelsior game. They faced the fact they had defeat, but they came back in that last match, didn't they? And they really showed some character to pull out that result. And it was a mistake, wasn't it, for the first goal in the first minute? But they'll take it, and that early goal settled a lot of nerves, didn't it? Yeah, definitely. I think that in the Champions League, as you said, they'll be pretty good. You saw their performance against Manchester United in the Europa League, beat them at home 1-0. I think their home form will be crucial, won't it, for all their Champions League games. I think the one thing that we're slightly disappointed about would be the fact that they have to share that money with Ajax should they win the Europa League.
Possibly, but I think they'll just look forward to playing in the Europa Cup again. You got to remember that Feyenoord were the first Dutch team to win the European Cup / Champions League in this day and age, as what it's called. So they have a special pedigree in it here. They'll enjoy being back, and I think with them being in a tough Europa League group this year with Manchester United, with Zorka Luhansk and Van Ukraine and Fenerbahce, will hold them in good stead.
Yeah, the teams have probably faced their Champions League. Do you see most of this squad staying together after this season? You've got the likes of Dirk Kuyt, who will probably retire, but do you think he will? Do you not think he'll be tempted by Champions League football? What about the rest of the squad? Are they not tempted to stay for the European matches?
I can see Dirk Kuyt being extremely tempted to stay purely for the fact that they're playing in the Champions League. I mean, he scored in a final for Liverpool against the AC Milan in 2007. So he's going to want to have one last go to make an impression in the Champions League. And I think I think the majority of the squad will stay together. I can't necessarily see many people leaving because they're going to want to play Champions League football. And considering who Feyenoord are rumoured to buy with Ayoub from Utrecht, with that rumour gaining momentum over time with online forums and online football articles regarding that transfer being question of not if but when already, and the transfer market hasn't even opened yet. It's quite impressive. I think they'll add well, and I think they'll look to consolidate next season. They're going to have to deal with a strong PSV next season. They're going to have to deal with an Ajax team that will want to win the title back after what would have been 2 years, and also a Vitesse team gaining momentum. Who I know it's still speculation with the summer transfer market ahead, but I think those 4 teams in particular will all gain strength and depth over the summer, and be interesting to see what happens.
Which of the final players do you think, though, would be likely to leave, if there were any? Because they've shown this season that there are some talents there. Like, for example, I think Terence Konkolo will be tempted to leave because he's had a long time, hasn't he, with Feyenoord? But you also got the likes of Vilhena as well, who will sign contracts. They've both signed contracts for next season and so on. But what does that mean nowadays in football, especially in Dutch football, where they seem to just sign contracts to show loyalty to the club, and the club can then get money from transfers because they have a long contract?
Well, I completely agree on Tony Vilhena. I was going to mention that just before you did. He was linked to Sampdoria in the past, and for personal reasons that transfer didn't occur. And he was also linked to Leicester when they won the league last year, and they were looking for summer recruitments. I can see Tony Vilhena leaving should the right offer come in. I also think when the future of Stephen Berghuis becomes more clear, I think he may leave. I think if Watford was to sit and take notice of what he's done this season in the Netherlands and give him an opportunity back in the Premier League next season, I think he might be tempted by that also.
And you've got Nikolai Jorgensen as well, who's the top goal scorer and best assister in the whole league. So he's probably going to attract some interest. But I was looking at the voting for Football-Oranje on Twitter for the team of the season, and I think we'll be talking about team of the season potentially next week in the podcast. But the vote was very close between Nikolai Jorgensen and Kasper Dolberg for the striker role. Do you think there's like a bit of? Do you not think it's a bit more clear that Jorgensen should be striker of the season? Because in my opinion, he's been the standout striker in the whole league. So why do you think the vote's so close?
I think due to Dolberg's age and what he's done for a boy of his age, it's been equally impressive, and not just in the Eredivisie, but also in the Europa League. I think with the different tastes of football followers and what exactly they're looking for and what exactly they view to be high quality, I think that's why it's split, because Dolberg, I mean, even watching him live on many occasions when I've been to Ajax this season, his movement off the ball for one so young is extremely impressive. So I think that's the reason why that the voting's gone quite close.
Yeah, fair point. I do like Dolberg, though. I think he's got a fantastic future. I think we're talking about him a bit later on as well.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree.
But there's not the only story to happen on Sunday was Feyenoord's title win. Heracles lost, and it meant they missed out on the European playoffs. So it means we have ties between, correct me if I'm wrong, James, but it's going to be Utrecht against Heerenveen and AZ against Groningen, with both Groningen and Heerenveen being the home ties first. And that'll be Wednesday, I believe.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Tomorrow at 6:30 local time is the first leg between Heerenveen and Utrecht. And as far as I'm aware, the Groningen AZ tie will be simultaneous. But also with those ties, you would look and say, maybe Utrecht Groningen or Utrecht AZ not maybe even thinking of Heerenveen. But the season is finished now. And this is a chance for Heerenveen to start again. And I was at the game where they lost 5-1 against Ajax in Amsterdam. But the first 10 minutes, they were fantastic. And they could have scored again to have gone 2-0 up. But I think there'll be many surprises. I think there'll be as many surprises in the relegation playoff than what there will be in the European places playoff.
I'm in disagreement there, James. I think you've just proven exactly why as well, because when Ajax played Heerenveen, for example, yeah, they were great for the first 10 minutes, just like when Heerenveen played Feyenoord as well. They were great for like the first 20, 30 minutes of the match, but they ran out of steam, and there's a lot of confidence issues there, and I really have a bit. I keep speaking against Jurgen Streppel in the podcast and in my predictions every week, but because I don't think he's got the capability to manage a team in the top half of the Eredivisie, I don't think he's a winning type of manager. They had some good form at the start of the season, but that was because players were on form. He could rely on the likes of Sam Larsson, Arbosnelli, and Reza Gajanejad to get some goals. But Stanislas was in midfield, and he was a massive leader for the team. And he gauged a lot of the team's tactics as well on the pitch. When he was injured, that leadership was gone, and I just don't think Steppel had that capability to turn it around or try something different when it was going wrong. And you've seen defeat after defeat. I believe they lost all of their away games since Christmas. That's not good enough form to win the playoffs, in my opinion. But you are right; it will be unpredictable, and I think we see a lot of goals in the playoffs. So if you're looking at placing a bet, perhaps some over 2.5 goals matches will be there for you. The gold dust.
Maybe, but I just meant in the case of Heerenveen being able to regroup. I think that was my main point.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they've been extremely poor, but the main point with the unpredictability and the possibility, but one of four any one of the four could play European football purely on the basis of Heerenveen, with the fact that they will be able to regroup. To go back onto your question of Jurgen Streppel, this is a man who left Willem II last summer to manage Heerenveen. Even a step up from Willem II to Heerenveen is quite big, and it takes a little bit of getting used to. And I think we'll be able to say more about Jurgen Streppel next season, because it wasn't so long ago when, as strange as this is going to seem what I'm about to say, but it's absolutely true. When Van Bronckhorst lost 7 games in a row with Feyenoord last season, and they appeared to hit the wall, there was a famous Dutch football TV show called Football Inside, where they had a poll where they asked people who could be the next Feyenoord manager, and Jurgen Streppel gained quite a lot of votes. So I think we'll see more of him. We'll be able to make more of an evaluation about what he's got to offer as a manager next season. To go back onto your playoffs point about the form of sides and how decisive that can be, you also mustn't forget that Heracles Almelo won the European playoffs last season. So that's how unpredictable it is.
Yeah.
Because naturally last season everybody thought, Utrecht they'll be playing in European football, and they lost to Heracles and they didn't make it. And then the sad thing was for me was when Heracles played Arouca from Portugal, they just didn't feel that they belonged at that level, didn't really have the confidence to spread even 2 passes together in an important European game. So I hope that whichever of the 4 teams win through take the qualifying game extremely seriously, because as we've mentioned in a previous pod before, when Shaka mentioned about the coefficient, I gave examples of when Zwolle got beat by Sparta Prague, when Heracles got beaten by Arouca, when Go Ahead Eagles were beaten by Hungarian side Ferencváros. These types of games, they all count towards a current situation regarding the coefficient. So I hope whichever one of the 4 manages to win through to the qualifying round of the Europa League, that they take the match seriously and they show enough confidence to be able to get into the group phase.
No, you're right. When teams are qualifying through the playoff route, we speak about how important this is for the final European ticket, but then how serious should this conversation be when most of the teams never seem to get to the group stage in the first place? And you saw a few years ago at Twente, they lost to a team from Azerbaijan, and Utrecht lost to a team from Liechtenstein, if I remember correctly. And it's appalling. Some of these, I mean, it might not be so bad now. And Heracles I actually count as a little unlucky not to get past Arouca, because in the home match, I believe that they had umpteen chances, couldn't take them. But in the away match, yeah, they were pretty lacklustre. But yeah, I think hopefully we'll start to see a change in motivation towards this kind of matches, mostly because of Ajax and PSV the season before. The way they've performed in Europe gives a lot of inspiration to the teams in the country.
Well, also as well, if you look back into recent history, I remember being in almost an ever-present for the 2009 campaign where Ajax reached the last 16 of the what was then the UEFA Cup, and they were beaten by Olympique Marseille. And you also had Twente, who were eliminated in the last 32, I believe, by Olympique Marseille. So you had a season then when the more regular Dutch teams were taking it seriously, and I'm going on to play important games. I mean, that Ajax team beat Fiorentina 1-0, and that was Prandelli's Fiorentina, where they won in the home leg, and that got them through to the last 16. So I think it's also different seasons and different approaches. I mean, you could also say the same about the Premier League in terms of the approach to European football. I mean, my example to that is the group that Tottenham Hotspur found themselves in this season with Bayer Leverkusen, CSKA Moscow, and Monaco. If you know your stuff, you know that is a very, very difficult group to get out of. Doesn't matter who you are, it's a tough old group to get out of. And they didn't manage it. And when they went on to get eliminated in the Europa League by Gent, again, it was kind of brushed to one side as if, these things can happen. They've got to concentrate on the Premier League. That may well be, but you have to take all games in Europe seriously, regardless of your stature. Have to prepare properly. If you look back into recent years, the gap between the smaller teams in Europe and the bigger teams in Europe and the medium-sized teams, those gaps are closing all the time, with the exception of the very, very top level with Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Juventus, Barcelona. If you go down from there, the gap is getting smaller and smaller and smaller between a Zenit St. Petersburg and a Monaco, or to give an example, a Dortmund or a Benfica. In terms of if those teams play one another, you can't necessarily say who's going to win over two legs.
No, I agree. I think before we should talk about the rest of the Eredivisie, before we talk about the relegation playoffs, we had a question from Mark Wright on Twitter. He says, who's been the most surprising team or player this season? And he also says he loves the show, by the way, James.
Very nice. Well, hello, Mark. How are you? Glad you enjoyed the show. I read your question on Twitter before we started our podcast on air. And if I can answer my question as to who's been the best player, the most surprising player, my nomination would be Lewis Baker. Because Lewis Baker was the top scorer in the Calder Bay Cup. He also has a winner's medal with Vitesse beating Aysed Alkmaar. What he's achieved at a very, very young age is a fantastic incentive for many, many British players should they wish to play their trade abroad. And I just think he's had a fantastic season, and be interesting to see what he can now go on to achieve if he returns to Chelsea or to the Championship or even going elsewhere. But I think also from a British point of view, we don't have many British players in the spotlight playing abroad, and I just think every time I've seen him play for Vitesse, he's always been a threat. He's always a threat to score a goal, always looking to go on the front foot, and I think his season with Vitesse this year will stay long in the memory. And also to be so young and to have made almost 70 appearances for an established Eredivisie team is quite good going. I think he's had a fantastic season.
Good question, isn't it? Actually, I was just trying to think of some players, and I think I want to try and look away from the top three because you've got the likes of Dolberg who have come and been amazing from absolutely nothing. De Ligt as well. I'm looking at Vitesse again, and I think Ricky van Wolfswinkel. He obviously was a very good player before he left the Eredivisie, but he went on to not do very much, and I think he came back with a lot of pressure and not having played too much, in the last few years, and he's gone on to become a good player again. You don't have to think about the quality of the Eredivisie when you think of that. You just think that he's come back to the league, and you can see in his play he's a lot more confident, and that's what makes a striker. And his positioning is excellent. His finishing is great, and he's been a massive leader for the team. Um, Another one along a similar sort of lines is Reza Gajanejad at Heerenveen, because he came in from Charlton, didn't he, James? And he was in a team that got relegated from the English Championship, and he has to all of a sudden step up and try and fire Heerenveen to at least a top half finish. It was a tricky thing to ask him to do because he hasn't got much competition around him in the squad, so he was going to be relied on. But those are my two picks of players. Would you agree with that, James?
Yeah, I think in the case of Ricky van Wolfswinkel, one stat which I find absolutely amazing as regards to Van Wolfswinkel, I think he was brought to Vitesse for €600,000,
Yeah.
which is a steal, which is an absolute steal, really. I think his attitude has been exemplary. I remember being in Lisbon many years ago on holiday, and he was on so much form for Sporting Lisbon that when you looked at the national papers, it was all, why isn't he being called up for the national team? He's on fire for Sporting Lisbon, and then all of a sudden he goes and signs for Norwich,
Yeah.
and which was a huge surprise to everybody. It doesn't matter if you had a specific team. I mean, I remember when that transfer broke, and you would discuss it with friends and colleagues, and everybody would come to the conclusion that this is a very, very strange transfer indeed. And with him being loaned out to Real Betis, and he's now managed to get good game time, and be interesting to see what he does, because he's got a fantastic attitude, and it was only fitting that he would score the two goals which made a final victory in the Dutch KNVB Cup possible for Vitesse. I think it was very, very impressive indeed.
Mm.
And also with your point about Ereza, you quite rightly said about his time at Charlton Athletic. But if you look at his career, he's played for Cambuur Leeuwarden, Sint-Truiden, Standard Liège, Charlton. Was also on loan at Kuwait, and now Heerenveen. So at the age of 29, he's accumulated a lot of experience.
Yeah.
And I think if he was surrounded by perhaps a little bit better players who would be able to complement his creativity, he may be able to improve even further.
Yeah, agreed. As for the team of the season, that's been a surprise. I'd say Twente, because they have had to come back from the blue. Really, they were struggling once they let go of Hakim Ziyech, or they had to let go of Ziyech because of financial concerns, and he wants to move. And they were pretty much a one-man team last season because he dug them out of trouble. But they've gone on and secured a few loan deals with the likes of Manchester City, and they haven't looked back, have they? They've got some good youth players as well that have come through. You spoke to one, didn't you, James van der Lele?
He's very complimentary about his teammates. I spoke to van der Lele back in March this season, and he was very complimentary about the team, about the striker Unal, who's an absolute killer in the penalty box. And it struck me as someone who's extremely content to be where he is. He's not necessarily thinking about moving on. He wants to first become established with FC Twente and then push on. I would say for Team of the Year, without the obvious choice being Feyenoord, I would go for Vitesse. I think in Henk Vleeser's first season, for them to win their very first piece of silverware in their 125-year history, question marks were raised by the appointment of Vleeser. Not so much he as a manager, but more the fact that why would you leave Ajax Den Haag to move to Vitesse? But I just think they've had a fantastic season. There's an awful lot of togetherness there, and I think they'll have an interesting Europa League campaign where they're really going to give it their all, because it wasn't so long ago that Vitesse under Peter Bosz was eliminated by Southampton in the Europa League qualifiers, and they didn't really get to taste the whole experience of Europe. And next season they're going to have 6 group games.
Yeah, I agree with that. They've had a decent season. I think they're about their level in terms of the table, but other than that, looking at apart from that, the cup win was obviously amazing for the club. Let's go back to the playoffs then, and there's a relegation playoffs at the same time as these European playoffs.
Yes.
And the final day saw Sparta survive, and we've got NEC and Roda JC to join the relegation playoffs. And James, you've explained how it's worked in the past, but there's already been a couple of games, I believe.
Absolutely, there has been a couple of games. There's been a couple of shocks as well. Helmond Sport managed to win both legs against Almere City, which was very surprising. And Emmen managed to dispatch of Eggerse Waalwijk, despite Waalwijk winning the second leg. So we now move into the semi-final stages of the promotion playoffs, where we have Helmond Sport playing at ODSA, and then MVV Maastricht playing Cambuur Leeuwarden, and then the winners of both respective ties will play each other in a 2-legged final, and the winner of that 2-legged home and away tie will either remain in the Eredivisie for next season or get promoted. If you look at the other half of that, there is also Emmen against NSA Nijmegen and Volendam against NAC Breda. So again, with the scenario I just gave, the winners of those 2 ties will face each other in a final, a 2-legged tie, home and away, and the winner will either remain in the Eredivisie if they're already in it, qualifying again, or it might be someone new. With Almere City's unexpected elimination, I automatically thought of the chances that Maastricht, NAC Breda and Cambuur Leeuwarden now have. I would be shocked if one of those 3 are not in the Eredivisie next season. I think the door is open for those 3 in particular. I think with Volendam, with their manager leaving and announcing a new manager next season already, I'm not entirely sure that Volendam will make it through. I think NAC Breda are coming up on the rails. I think they'll be in with a tremendous chance. And I think for history and in terms of the city, I think if MVV Maastricht were to be promoted, I think that would be a fantastic profile for Maastricht, because it's a lovely part of the Netherlands. I myself have never been there in all my years here, but it has an absolutely fantastic reputation of all people that go there for city breaks and with the great scenery that it has. So I think to have their football team back in the top tier will be something good for the city.
Yeah, but from an Eredivisie point of view, do you think NEC and Roda will survive? For myself, I think Roda will have to all of a sudden change their tactics. They're looking at all of a sudden going from being a defensive unit that will stifle teams, especially away from home. All of a sudden, they're the bigger team. The onus is on them. They've got to attack. They've got to win. I'm not sure they can handle it. I think Anastasiou will face. He obviously he's leaving to go to Belgium next season, but he's going to face some pressure on him there to really pull a result out of the bag, because he thought he might have survived after some late wins in the season. But NEC, personally, I don't. I'm actually more confident they'll survive now that Hibala's left, and there's a bit more of an alleviation on the squad, and they're playing with a bit more freedom than they used to, and that might suit them just going into those playoffs. That little bit of confidence to lift them out of it. What do you think, James?
I think both have a fantastic chance of remaining in Eredivisie. I think Anastasiou's in a bit of a sticky wicket, because obviously he's leaving for Kortrijk, which was announced quite some time ago. It'd be interesting to see who ODSA would look to get. If they do stay up, I was thinking about it earlier today, if they do manage to stay up with ODSA and they really wanted to show ambition, they could go for Ron Jans. Ron Jans used to play for them during his playing career, and he's now not going to become teacher of the Dutch FA official management course. So it'll be interesting to see if they have enough ambition to try to tempt someone like that. You could compare that to when Zwolle managed to get Oranje, which was a fantastic coup. Again, he used to play for Zwolle, and maybe that was something which pulled him into thinking about becoming the manager there. I think both have a great chance of remaining in the Eredivisie, but I think there'll be many a twist and many a turn ahead. I think what I stated in previous pods about the second leg being at home, well, that is the case for Rode JC and NEC Nijmegen, and for me, that is going to be decisive. I think if the second leg was in the case of NSA, the second leg was in Emmen, that might be slightly different. And I just think that home advantage for both in the second leg is going to be decisive, where they will both make for final. But should they come up against Maastricht, Cambuur, or NAC Breda, respectively, I think that one of the other three teams that may make up the final round would go on to reach the Eredivisie.
So yeah, the Eredivisie is almost at an end. There's only playoff matches to go, but we do of course have the treat of a Europa League final, Ajax v Manchester United. And just before we started the recording the pod, James and I had differing opinions on the final. What did you think, James? Who do you think is going to win, and what's going to happen?
I have full confidence that Ajax will win. Whether that will be in 90 minutes or 120 minutes, I'm not sure. But I think they'll win. I think Manchester United are already underestimating Ajax. The British press. I'm yet to read a newspaper article. I'm yet to read an online article or watch a video on YouTube or a respective media outlet which states that Manchester United are going to have a tough final ahead of them, with the supporters of Ajax really up for the final, really wanting to make the most of their first final in 21 years. And also the name of Ajax. It's fantastic that the club is is on the tips of people's tongues again. And I just think with the journey they've had, I mean, as I stated before, I was at the very first European home game they played this season against PAOK Saloniki at home in Amsterdam back in last August. And they were 1-0 down after half an hour. And you really didn't think that this team would eventually go on to reach the Europa League final. I think they all realise that this is going to be a chance for them, a chance they're going to look to take. And I really wouldn't be surprised if Ajax was to be the winner of the Europa League this season.
I'm not as confident as James. I do obviously hope Ajax can win. I'm a massive Dutch football fan. But Manchester United, although they may face problems with Ajax's intense and quick style of play, Man United are very solid defensively, and they could take that into the final. They're good at stifling opponents. Can they stifle Ajax? As Mourinho got that little bit of experience to just tactically tweak it so he can nullify the likes of Dolberg, maybe be a bit physical on him, maybe try and take him out of the game, make him not feel at home. And there's the wingers as well. I think Amin Younes, for example, is actually quite easy to defend against. He's very, very one-footed. He's stated in the past he wants to work on his weaker foot and such. But it's these kind of things where you can look at these weaknesses and really try and tactically nullify the way of playing. Bertrand Traore as well is another one. He always likes to cut on his left foot. If you can take him out of the game, if you can annoy him a little bit, I think his attitude will quickly change. I do think, though, that Manchester United will have a tough time dealing with Hakim Ziyech and Lasse Schöne, because they are... Oh, well, Ziyech is more of a 10, but Schöne in the 6, he will really try and create something from deep, and having just sheer amount of creativity in midfield will be a lot for Man United to handle. One thing that is for sure, though, I'm pretty sure Ajax will create chances. They always do against all their opponents. Man United will just want to limit that. And at the end of the day, they have experience from this season's European campaign, but they are still very young players, very inexperienced against a very experienced bunch of players in Man United. There's a massive difference between the two teams in the way of playing, the ages, the confidence of the teams. And I think one final point before I let you speak, James, is Eric Bailly, the Man United centre back, got red carded in the semi-final, so he'll miss the final. That could be massive, especially the amount of injuries they have already in the squad.
Could be, I agree, and also no Ibrahimovic for Manchester United as well. And,
true.
It wasn't so long ago that Ajax played Manchester United in the Europa League, and they won at Old Trafford, and it was a result which spurred them on to go on to win Eredivisie again. And it was almost like a shock of Manchester United. We've been beaten by Ajax. I mean, I think a lot of people are guilty in underestimating Ajax and thinking, oh, it's just the Dutch side that finished second to Feyenoord, and this we should be able to turn them over. But I think Ajax fully understand the occasion that they're going to be playing, and I think they'll relish being underdogs. And as I say, I've been quite shocked at how certain pundits and analysts appear to give the impression that Manchester United only have to turn up. It'd be nice to see Ajax win, regardless whether it's comfortable, whether it's by hook or crook or by luck. But what I'm going to say might sound quite strange, but I personally think, I could be wrong, but it's just my personal opinion, if Manchester United were playing a more seasoned European team that had maybe even more pedigree, or had been playing Champions League football regularly for years on end and reaching semi-finals or quarter-finals or finals themselves, I think all media outlets may have changed their tune and decided that they would be in a game. But I think because they think it's plucky little Ajax, they seem to think that all Manchester United have to do is turn up.
Well, in the home matches against Schalke and Lyon, they showed that it's not going to be easy. They tore them to shreds. But on the opposite side of the coin, away against Schalke and Lyon, they were quite suspect defensively. I saw a rating for the players at Ajax in the away game to Lyon. Players such as Vierkever, he did get red carded. It was given a 2 out of 10. Sanchez was given a 4 out of 10. And all the players were rated pretty much 5 and below, but apart from Klaassen, it was a 6. Younes was a 6. And I actually tended to agree with it. I didn't think they performed that well at all in Lyon. And if, say, it was the first leg of the tie, you'd be like, Ajax haven't got the quality. This is typical Dutch result in Europe. But they had that lead, didn't they, from the first leg? But Lyon put them under so much pressure, and it told, and they crumbled. But one thing that I will say, though, is Man United will not be doing that sort of pressure. They will not be attacking the way Lyon did so ferociously, which would make it a lot more comfortable for the Ajax players.
Yeah, I think it'll be a tense game. I wouldn't be surprised if it went to extra time or even penalties. My personal prediction is that the game will last longer than 90 minutes. I think circumstances will dictate that maybe one side will want to hold on to their lead or look ahead towards maybe extra time and penalties. But it should be a good final with two absolutely mammoth European teams with fantastic pedigree. And Ajax also have pedigree, don't get me wrong. They absolutely do, with winning 4 European Cups and also winning the UEFA Cup in the past as well, and winning over 30 titles here in the Netherlands. So, but I'm just trying to make the point that if they were playing, I don't know, maybe a Benfica or a Sevilla, then I don't think that the British press in particular would be as quick just to hardly mention anything about Ajax and just focus on the fact that they insinuate all Manchester United have to do is turn up.
Yeah, I'm going to be releasing a video on the YouTube channel in the coming days about the Ajax team, just to inform a few United fans, because this team has come a long way since the beginning of the season. This is not a team that was that came so close last season, second in the Eredivisie. They started off the season poorly. They had to face change. They lost Frank de Boer as manager. Good, because he dragged the team's tactics down, especially in Europe. He got the title wins, of course, but let's see what happens now. Peter Bosz has got more time to really make the team his own. It's only his first season as manager, and he's taken within 2 points of the title. And I do think that already, I can say now in May, I'll make a bold prediction. I think they'll win the Eredivisie next season. They'll stand to lose a few players, but they will replace them. They've got talent everywhere, and it's come along so rapidly. If you look at the start of the season, they dropped points at home to Rowe, Willem II, teams that struggled throughout the season. They were a different team then. Since then, they've progressed and come together as a team. Hakim Ziyech has become a player that's on fire all the time, matches. He's always contributing goals, assists. Lasse Schöne has developed well as defensive midfielder. He wasn't quite that kind of player before. And they just have got so many options, and things have just come along so quickly for them. They can't be considered the same team that they were in the past.
No, the approach is completely different, and I completely agree with your assessment with Frank de Boer in Europe. I was at many a European game under his tutelage when they had a Champions League group with Apoel, Nicosia, Barcelona, Paris Saint-Germain. In the past, also with Lyon, Dynamo Zagreb, Real Madrid. Being eliminated by Steaua Bucharest, having won the first leg 2-0 in Amsterdam, and so on and so on. I think Bosz's tactics in Europe have been extremely refreshing. I do agree that it was a different team at the start of the season, and you've got to remember as well that the appointment of Peter Bosz was heavily criticised because of his Feyenoord links, having played over 150 games for Feyenoord. And I would say you also have to give credit to Edwin van der Sar and Mark Overmars for the full confidence they had in Peter Bosz, because they were adamant even before the season started. We have got the right man we want. We have full confidence in him and what he will do. And he's led them to within 1 point of an Eredivisie title with 81 points in the Europa League final. So he's had an absolutely fantastic season, and he's done his career a world of good. Be interesting to see how he pushes on as a manager next season. I stated in the past it wasn't so long, it was maybe just over a decade ago that he led Heracles Almelo to the Eredivisie from the Europa League. Also having managed the Graafschap in the past, and Tel Aviv and Vitesse as well. So I don't think he's done his career any harm whatsoever with the season he's had at Ajax.
Yeah, I used to think Bosz was a bit of a nutter when he played in the Eredivisie with Heracles. He just invented this three. Well, I didn't invent the 3-4-3, but the way that they played was extraordinary. A mid-table team that would just lavish attacks. The three defenders at the back, there would be usually two fullbacks as well, and they would push on and be overlapping fullbacks in a back three. It was extraordinary, and it would leave gaps open at the back. But they scored one of the most, in the Eredivisie, but also conceded one of the most, and it was extraordinary, yeah. And he brought it to Vitesse, because when he started at Vitesse, he did a similar sort of thing. The likes of Van Aanholt, for example, the left back, when he was there, he would be playing left centre back, but would still be bombing forward. And he's only gone on to improve that and show it at a bigger stage at Ajax. Not the 3-4-3, but the likes of Daley Sinkgraven playing a midfielder at fullback and knowing that his attacking capabilities would be more than useful.
Yeah, I completely agree. I remember when Heracles got promoted. It was my first. I think it was my first year here in the Netherlands, and I went to watch them in Amsterdam against Ajax, and they drew 0-0. And it was looked upon as a complete embarrassment of a result. But Heracles went to the Amsterdam Arena and managed to get a 0-0 draw. I mean, that also states how difficult things were for Ajax at that time, but also how much courage they had and how much conviction they had to think that we will go all the way from Almelo to Amsterdam and managed to eke out a 0-0 draw, which was quite impressive at the time.
On the topic of Ajax, we must answer another question from our Twitter. Of course, if you're listening as well and you want to ask us a question, just send us a tweet on Twitter. We'll pick it up and we'll answer it. And it's from Sandakan, who asks, "What's your take on Dolberg's future?" I'll let you go first, James.
My take on his future is that he will leave in the short to mid term. But one thing I wouldn't rule out with the powers that be and different clubs, I would be shocked if the club that manages to obtain his services doesn't loan him back to Ajax. I think Ajax would near enough demand that in the negotiations. Just to give an example, I've heard no rumours as regards to the clubs being linked, but I'm just going to use Real Madrid as an example, just as a general example. If it was Real Madrid that managed to obtain his services, I would be surprised if they didn't loan him back to Ajax for maybe one season or maybe even 2 seasons before thinking about what to do. I think Ajax are quite shrewd in the transfer market, especially with negotiations with Marco Overmars. And I would be highly surprised at whichever club it is that Ajax don't put in a stipulation where he has to come back to Ajax on loan before going on to his new parent club.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was going to say something very similar to that. I think a team such as Manchester United would go and try and sign him, but Ajax would want him back on loan. I don't think he's going to be playing at a different team next season. I think he'll definitely have another season at Ajax, if not arguably more. It's just another hype. There's lots of hype players in the Eredivisie, and once the names we mentioned, rumours go wild, and with this Europa League final as well, it's only going to get worse for a player like Dolberg. But it's strange, isn't it, how he said that he wants to stay in for Ajax another season, but then he said, "Oh no, my words were twisted." I said, I don't. He basically didn't. I don't know what's going to happen, and I would move club, but I hope to stay at Ajax for another season. He's just stating the fact that he doesn't know what will happen in football, like no other footballer does. But at the end of the day, he's planning to stay at Ajax. He wants to develop himself there.
He's come an awful long way in such a short time. I mean, it wasn't so long ago he was playing for Silkeborg in Denmark, and then all of a sudden you're one of the most wanted young strikers in the whole of Europe. And I can see him remaining at Ajax this coming season, but you never know. 1 or 2 goals in the Europa League final could change all that, and could bring an eventual bid from a European powerhouse. Things could change very quickly.
No, that's right. A final as well of all places is a perfect place to advertise yourself, and he's also got potentially some games with Denmark coming up over the end of May, June, and that's a further showcase for him. He's definitely an excellent player, and I think he reminds me of Dimitar Berbatov. Would you agree with that?
I think it's a very good comparison. I think, in my personal opinion, I think Dimitar Berbatov is still underrated. I saw Dimitar Berbatov play for Monaco against Arsenal live back in February 2015, and he absolutely ripped apart an extremely experienced Arsenal defence with his movement off the ball, with his movement on the ball, with his awareness of space, which I think was the most impressive thing. And I think it's a very good comparison, to be honest.
Yes, he's got a cool sort of character, and he has that touch on the ball, good finisher, and I think if he went to the Premier League, I would think that he would struggle with the physicality because he's a very slight figure, and you can see that he tries to hold the ball up in games, but can be mussed off the ball because he's a target man kind of striker. But similar to Berbatov, he didn't really have that ounce of strength to really hold the ball on. But he's got that movement to make up for it. I just hope he doesn't change as a player. For example, becomes that target man kind of striker. Now, what was it you wanted to talk about, James?
I have a quick mention about Sparta Rotterdam. I stated on the pod that I see them playing relegation playoffs. And on the very last day of the season, away to Go Ahead Eagles, they managed to win and escape completely. It did dawn on me they've lost 18 games this season, And although they've managed to escape, which is, you could say it's deserved, the one thing which is fantastic about Sparta Rotterdam's survival, this is the oldest football club in the Netherlands. And when this club plays at the highest level, it feels at home, it's respected, it's also by neutrals, they're happy to see them back. Similar to Go Ahead Eagles, when Go Ahead Eagles are playing in Eredivisie, it's always welcomed. But obviously, at the moment, Go Ahead Eagles don't have the quality. I hope that Sparta Rotterdam now managed to establish themselves and push on. But one thing I have found strange this season has been Alex Pastoor's team selections. I remember going to the home match in Amsterdam where he seemed to leave all his best players on the bench. And I expected Sparta Rotterdam to have a right go. Maybe they didn't think they were going to achieve anything winning in Amsterdam, but they could have very well got a point if they'd have maybe played their best team and played to their capabilities. But they've just managed to survive by the skin of their teeth, and one would hope that the oldest club in the Netherlands manages to push on and establish themselves at the top level.
Yeah, I agree. I really hope they push on and they can sign a few quality players to go with what they've already got. They've got some young talents. They've got a couple of their more established players that help them get up from the second tier. They just need another attacking midfielder potentially to add a few more goals, because I think sometimes it's very laboured, their style of play. Like when they just rely on Matthias Pogba to come off the bench, they can throw a few balls into the box, and that seems to be all they had at sometimes. But Pusic, the striker, came in January. He scored those 2 vital goals that got them the win last weekend at Go Ahead. So he could be an answer. I think just a couple more players will be needed there, and they can really push on.
Yeah, I hope that they show more attacking intent next season. I mean, they've drawn 7 games out of 34, having lost 18 and won 9. And you would hope that next season they show just a little bit more adventure in going forward. And if they do lose a game whilst going to win it, by law of averages over the course of the season, instead of those draws being losses or a current 0-0 draw going on to be a loss for them, if they show a little bit more adventure, they could very well get a few more victories, which may well lead to having an easier season next season.
I totally agree again. I think the start of the season, they did have that freedom. They did show that attacking intent, and they actually won a few games. But the tide started to turn, and they went quite reserved all of a sudden. I need to try and pinpoint a match or two maybe that happened, because, for example, they went away and got a good point against Groningen, but they didn't push on, and they sort of changed their style. It wasn't as free-flowing as before. Who was the name of their striker they had on loan from Ajax? That's escaped my mind.
Sorry?
That's escaped my mind.
Yeah, I'll have to look it up. I know that Thomas Fahar, who managed to score so many goals to get them into the Eredivisie in the first place, hasn't played much this season. I know he was injured at some point, but he's someone that could have made a bit more of a difference for them.
Yeah.
And I just think that Alex Pastoor, he's got a good nucleus of a good squad to push on next season.
Okay. The name of the player was El Azuzi, by the way, because he had a good start to the season, and then ended up getting sent back to the club. Because I don't quite know the reason, but he just sort of stopped. He stopped scoring goals and got sent back, I believe. But yeah, but they're the kind of players that need some more ammunition from, such as Craig Goodwin as well. But we'll see what happens for the next season.
Yeah, it'll be a bit on the transfer market, especially in the Netherlands. It's going to be extremely interesting. I think also that Thomas Brouwers has already signed for Vitesse instead of Utrecht, when everybody thought he would go to Utrecht. So I think there'll be lots of changes, and be interesting to keep an eye on things. And I think on the transfer front, it will be a very interesting summer.
It's going to be exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I expect a lot of PSV. I think that the pressure on them to buy well and to recruit well, not just experienced players but also younger players. The pressure is on PSV the most because they need to react well to what's happened at Feyenoord and at Ajax. And I know it's still premature and lots will happen, but I stated a couple of pods ago that I think that this coming season will be Philip Cocu's last at PSV Eindhoven.
Okay, James, thanks for talking to me this week.
You're more than welcome. I've enjoyed it, a nice short pod, and it's been good fun. And I look forward to speaking to you next. We're going to do next Tuesday because the final is on the Wednesday.
We'll see what happens.